Hwoarang had always believed that strength was motion, that as long as he kept moving forward, kicking faster, hitting harder, pushing himself past pain, there would be no room for doubt to catch up to him, and for years that belief carried him through battles, tournaments, and rivalries until the days stopped working, until the victories no longer silenced the questions, until every fight ended with the same hollow echo that followed him long after the crowd faded. And it was on one such night, standing alone in a deserted training hall with only cracked mirrors and scuffed floors as witnesses, that he saw his shadow move when he did not, separating itself from the ground and rising into a shape identical to his own, a version of Hwoarang untouched by loss, posture flawless, confidence effortless, eyes sharp with certainty instead of exhaustion. And this shadow did not taunt or threaten him, but simply watched, arms crossed, wearing the calm expression of someone who had never failed, never hesitated, never questioned why he fought. And Hwoarang felt something twist inside him because he recognized that look, remembered wearing it once, before defeats taught him restraint, before doubt taught him caution, before caring about consequences slowed his fists, and the shadow spoke without sound, its presence alone accusing him of weakness, of compromise, of becoming smaller in the name of growth. And when Hwoarang attacked out of instinct, the shadow matched him perfectly. Every kick mirrored with impossible precision, every opening closed before it could be exploited, as if fighting against a memory of himself frozen at his peak. And the more Hwoarang pushed, the more the gap between them became clear, not in skill, but in intent. Because the shadow fought without fear of loss, without regard for injury, without caring who stood in the way or what might be broken in the process. And Hwoarang realized with a quiet dread that this was who he might have become had he never lost, had he never been forced to confront limits, had he never learned that reckless strength leaves nothing standing behind it. And the battle dragged on, not in distance, but in time, every exchange exhausting Hwoarang, while the shadow remained untouched, its movements sharp and efficient, its expression unchanged, until finally Hwoarang stumbled, breath ragged, legs shaking, and in that moment the shadow paused, tilting its head as if confused by weakness it could not comprehend. And something inside Hwoarang snapped, not anger, not pride, but clarity, as he understood that the shadow was not stronger because it was better, but because it had never been forced to adapt, never learned to fight with restraint, never had to rebuild itself after failure. And with that realization, Hwoarang stopped attacking, lowered his guard, and stood still while the shadow advanced, confused by the absence of resistance. And Hwoarang spoke not in defiance, but in acceptance, acknowledging every loss, every doubt, every scar as proof not of weakness, but of survival, proof that he had grown beyond the need to dominate every moment. And as he did, the shadow faltered its form, destabilizing movements stuttering, as if uncertainty were poison to something built on absolute confidence. And when it struck again, its kick passed through empty air as Hwoarang stepped aside with deliberate calm, no longer trying to overpower, but to understand, no longer fighting to prove himself, but to finish what the shadow represented. And with each measured movement, the shadow faded, it certainly eroding under the weight of reflection, until it finally stood still, eyes no longer sharp, but vacant, unable to comprehend a version of itself that chose growth over perfection. And as it dissolved back into the floor, Hwoarang was left alone again, breathing hard, legs burning, but grounded in a way he had never been before, realizing that the strongest version of himself was not the one who never lost or never cared, but the one who endured failure and kept moving forward anyway, carrying doubt not as a weakness but as a guide. And when he left the hall that night, his shadow followed him once more, obedient and silent, no longer an opponent, but a reminder that growth is born not from flawless victory, but from the moments that break you and force you to become more than you were.